Good afternoon and welcome to the April 16th Technical Review Committee meeting. My name is Anna Barge and I'm the Senior Planner with Oldham County Planning and Development. I just wanted to preface this meeting that we only have one item on the agenda today, TRC-25-008 Buckner Industrial Park. If you're here for TRC-25-007 Project Lincoln Data Center or TRC-25009 Parkwood Townhomes, those are not going to be considered today. The data center has been postponed for a later agenda, and then the Parkwoods Townhomes, it was decided by staff that they did not need to come to Technical Review Committee because they did not meet the threshold to need to come. So the purpose of this meeting is to review proposed subdivisions, zoning map amendments, and development plans before they go to Planning Commission if required to. This gives local agencies and utility companies that will provide services the opportunity to review plans, discuss and comment about the accessibility of services, and ensure all aspects of the development plans adhere to zoning and subdivision regulations. This meeting also provides adjoining property owners and concerned citizens in attendance the opportunity to ask technical questions of the applicants or agencies represented before you. We will allow a combined 20 minutes of time for these comments. No testimony in favor or against an application will be taken at this meeting, and no decisions are made at this meeting. So now is the time for the applicant for TRC 25-008 Buckner Industrial Park at 3926 West Highway 46 and 2700 South Highway 393 LaGrange. At this time, we'll ask the applicant or their representative to come forward and give a brief overview of the application.
Better? There we go. I'm Cliff Ashburn with Dinsmore and Scholl here today on behalf of Westcott Construction, who's the applicant on the proposal before you. Phil Gambrell is here. Phil's got a very short slide presentation that he's going to give you, and then we're looking forward to receiving your comments and hopefully being able to address them. Thank you.
How do I get to?
If you use the mouse to go all the way down, the bar will pop up, and then go over to the file folder. Yeah, and then you can go to the left and you'll see the flash drive. It's one of those. There you go. Hit the escape button. There you go.
Basically, we're looking at the area, if you're familiar with 146, the truss factory, the wooden truss factory. We're looking at the property at the rear of that. It fits right here. And I mainly brought this slide in just to kind of get a visual of Buckner, Kentucky. I've spent 60-something years in this area, and always when somebody would mention Buckner, you thought, oh, okay. You would say, okay, that's where the high school's at, because that's always what we associated with Buckner. But Buckner has become a lot more than that now. Fortunately for developers and so on, there's a pretty good dividing line, and that's I-71. Things north of I-71 have pretty much become industrial commercial, and south of I-71 is where all the residential is. So here's a little bit of a closer area from what we're looking at. This wooded area you see here is the property that we're working with. Everything in the area surrounding us is zoned industrial. We are currently I-2 And the property below us, the Oldham County Industrial Park, is IDP. And then another important thing about trying, when you see the actual development plan, one of the challenges that goes with this site, as you can see here, are the contours. It's very steep from the back of the trust company down to our property line. So right now, that is requiring a nice retaining wall all along the back property line because we're going to be cutting the backside out, moving it down, and leveling the site out. It's kind of hard to fit a 200,000 square foot building on sloped land. It's kind of hard. So here is our plan itself. You can see here is 146 LaGrange Road at the top. The actual truss factory sets right here. And then we have this bottom portion of the property down. This is the boundary line with Oldham County Industrial Park. We are proposing to come in at the existing curb cut on 393, come across old 393 into the site, down along the bottom property line adjacent to Oldham County Industrial with a dead end with a turnaround for future development of this property next door to it if it ever becomes developed. As I said, we have 200,000 square foot warehouses. We have 2 of them on the site. They each will have 20 dock doors, 2 roll-up doors, and associated parking. The Oldham County regulations don't specifically refer to warehousing for parking standards. So we basically used the industry standard of 1 space per 2,000 square feet of warehouse. And that roughly 100 spaces per building. And as you can see, with one, we have 117 spaces. The other, we have 109. So we're proposing 2 office spots on each building, 1 on each end. That way, if someone comes in and wants just half of the warehouse, they can just use half of the warehouse and put a demising wall in and take care of that. And then, obviously, we have all open ground now, very little to any impervious surface, and we're practically covering the entire site impervious. So we have 3 large detention facilities laid out in order to do the stormwater management. And these are in the very early stage. The architect that are doing the plans for this development, this is 3 of their recent ones in the area. So it's just, I put them there so that you can kind of see how they work out with the office in the corner of the building and then your dock structure along the front. Won't be exactly this, but it'll be similar to this. And with that, anyone have any questions?
I don't believe anyone has any questions at the staff level or technical review committee level at this time. So we will move on to agency comments unless the applicant has anyone else that needs to speak.
No, that's
Okay. And you can leave that up if you want right now, if anyone wants to reference anything. So next we have agency comments, and we'll start with John Hine, Planner 1.
Good afternoon. My first comment would be contact GIS manager Matt Toller regarding the addressing of parcel 31-00-00-8A. There is currently no 2700 South Highway 393 in our system. Verify that all abutting streets or private roads have the location, names, and dimensions. Include right-of-way widths of proposed streets and existing adjacent streets, verify that all locations of utilities have been indicated on the plan, verify that all easements are noted on the plan, indicate the areas of substantial trees, including a general description of their type and sizes, note whether there are any areas of steep slope over 30%, and the applicant will need to submit a landscape and lighting plan to staff for approval prior to being issued a building permit, verify that the stormwater flow is indicated on the plan, and indicate any sanitary sewers, street grades, and other facilities, and note the number of parking spaces required and provided per section 280-050 industrial, manufacturing, and warehouse parking regulations. I just wanted to check that while you were talking, but it does mention warehouse spaces in those parking regulations. Yeah. I have some further questions from additional agencies that can't be in attendance. Comments from Jason Richardson at KYTC. We do not have any comments on this other than to say that if possible, a connection to Commerce Parkway is highly recommended to provide access to traffic to/from this development to KY 93 and I-71 via the signalized intersection at KY 393 and Commerce Parkway. And these will all be available for you guys at the end. From Russ Rose at Oldham County Water. This property, the subject property lies within the service area of OCWD. While construction plans have not been submitted for review, water service must be made available as required by the Kentucky Public Service Commission, contingent upon the developer installing any necessary infrastructure, both within and/or outside the development site, in accordance with the OCWD specifications and regulatory agencies. However, I believe there is an existing water lines on the property, and I would ask that they be shown to prevent any future conflict. The engineer may contact me, and we will be glad to locate the existing lines. From Delana Gideons, no comment. She's with Louisville Gas and Electric Company. From Chief Smith with the Oldham County Police Department. The only issue I would have is traffic, especially on 146. I think a traffic study would be appropriate considering the proposal is close to Oldham County schools. This review should be during school hours and include school traffic hours. And that's it for my comments.
If I could comment for Chief Smith, this property, currently the Trust Factory accesses, their access is on 146. And it's not the best place in the world for the large trucks to be crossing over the railroad track and trying to get on the 146. What this plan does is we are providing an access road into the Trust Factory so that they can eliminate their truck traffic trying to cross the railroad tracks onto 146. So that should help out quite a bit. An additional, yes.
Matt Toller, GIS Manager.
I mean, the only real comment I would have is we'll just have to figure out road names. And then for every office space, we'll probably just give it a separate address, depending on whether it's the same company or not, but just so that, first responders would know either side of the building. And, but I mean, this road D, I mean, I would just consider that to be just an unnamed road. Since it just stubs out, there's going to be no connectivity to anything else. It'll just save you it'll be silly to just put a street sign that goes to nothing. But, yeah, those are my only real comments.
Jim Silliman, County Engineer.
Yeah, so you're familiar with a lot of our regulations, having done work in the county. Greater than 1 acre land disturbance, of course, you'll provide an application for an Oldham County Stormwater Quality Management and Erosion Control Plan, Kentucky Division of Water KYR 10 plan. The Oldham County permit will require you provide the stormwater detention calculations. You've already alluded to those in your presentation for detention to address the required storm events as well as water quality. I think we've discussed in the past that we do allow or really encourage, as opposed to proprietary water quality units, some type of feature in the basin outlet structure. It tends to be more easily maintained than a proprietary structure, but ultimately that decision's up to you. We're just letting you know that it is acceptable by our agency.
In this case, it'll work much better.
Yeah. So at this level of a detail on a preliminary plan, it's hard to tell. So I just want to be clear that Oldham County subdivision regulations do require curbing around all traveled parking areas, and it's partially to allow the collection of that storm water and properly directing it to your basins. No trees should be permitted within the 100-year water surface elevation. The discharge of your basin outlets should be 15 feet from any adjacent property line to allow for maintenance in the future. Getting into the traffic study, so when we originally had some correspondence with two traffic engineers regarding the proposed traffic assessment, I concurred with their calculations that this development, based on the size and use, would generate between 73 and 80 peak hour trips, whether it's AM or PM. And then you can combine that with the traffic volume on 393, it would require a traffic assessment in accordance with Oldham County subdivision regulations, but not a traffic impact study. However, listening to what you were saying about a couple of the other connections, when we look at the future road extension on the west and then also adding traffic from the truss company, I think we need to verify with KYTC that they're okay with not requiring a full traffic impact study, because it may be now greater than 100 peak hour trips. So we'll continue that coordination and see if we need to go further than a traffic assessment.
We don't have access to.
Can you speak in the microphone? Yeah, it's okay.
We initially, when we had talked about this development, it included two parcels, one of which did have a connection to Commerce. This particular parcel doesn't have connection to Commerce.
Well, it doesn't have to do with the connection to Commerce. It's just if we're, again, just the 400,000 square feet of warehouse generates the 73 to 80 peak hour trips. Now, if we know there's potential added traffic from the existing trust company and a future, we need to make sure we
Quantify
don't
what
need
those
to look
are.
at that right now. And,
Okay.
and if those added trips go above 100, then we get into the criteria of a traffic impact
Sure.
study as opposed to a traffic assessment.
Can-
It's a common, I guess, challenge with development. If
It's
let's say if four developers come in and they've each got 50 peak hour trips, well, none of them require a traffic impact
Sure.
study, but together they're at 200. So how do you address that?
the road D, which is on the west end of the property, is there currently to serve as egress and ingress for tractor trailers so they don't have to cross the highway. We're
Right.
working with, there's an additional parcel on the east side of the truss plant that the state owns. We understand that there's some utility relocation. They're working on a plan there. The owner of the truss plant, his preference would to put that easement up on the northeast corner of their property directly on, and gaining access that way. So that's something we're fleshing out. The road on that side might end up going away. So
Yeah.
anyway.
And I'm not saying there aren't benefits to your plan. There
Sure.
certainly are to alleviate the trust company's traffic onto 146. We just need to look at the impact on the other side.
Sure, absolutely.
Can you state your name and address just for the record so that we have it in our records?
Yep, Wes Johnson with Westcott Development. 13304 West Highway 42, Prospect, Kentucky, 40059.
Thank you. Okay. So now we will move on to Major Smith from LaGrange Fire Department.
A couple of questions there for you. You were talking about closing that road to semi-traffic going across the railroad, correct? But your employees and everybody will still be using that, is that correct?
If it works out that we are able to have this back entrance, yes, that would be the plan.
Okay, all right. Couple other questions then. What's the type of construction on these two buildings? Are they tilt-up concrete? Okay, all right. And,
Which requires a 60-foot buffer for fire rating, yes.
it seems to me, and I hadn't got my bearings real good on in between the lot at the top here, somewhere over in there, there's a existing fire hydrant that's put in. It's all in that gravelled area over there. I'd like to see that on this map as an existing. And then also, have you all looked at plans and all as yet for hydrants and for fire department connections for the systems on both these buildings?
Yes, it's like Jim said, by the time you get all the information on these drawings, they're pretty full.
Right.
But we have new fire hydrants located at the entrances into each of the dock facilities. And then from that area there, we will have our connection going up for a fire department connection, a cluster there on the wall of the building itself.
How many systems will be on this? Do you know yet on each building?
I do not know that at this
Okay.
time. That's
If at all possible, we prefer to have a remote FDC
okay.
on these and not one attached directly to the building.
But then it would be very convenient for both you and us then to come over and have that connection right here so that your trucks have the full maneuverability of this dock apron
Yes, sir.
to be able to work and connect and use. So that'll work out best for both of us.
All righty. So the remote FDCs, the hydrant placements that we'll come up with on there. And then also each building would have to have their own fire Knox box on it. If you get into a situation where each of these is split, as you say, then I need a Knox box on each of the entries to those.
Okay.
That's all I've got to say.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other agencies that need to provide any comments?
I am Mark Seitz, Development Review Manager for Louisville MSD. Currently,
Can you speak more into the mic?
yes,
Sorry,
I
it's
can.
not made for tall people. It's made for people my height.
Okay. At 700 West Liberty Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40203. We have been involved with the review of this plan, and we have more than enough sanitary capacity for the proposed use. And we will have interest in other portions yet to come, primarily from the west. But at this point, we haven't looked in any detail if anybody might have had questions of that sort. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that will close the agency portion. Now it's time for public comments. If anyone would like to come forward and ask questions that are technical in nature, please state your name and address at the podium. Anyone wanting to ask questions? Or you can come up. And just make sure to speak into the mic, please, with your name and address.
Whoops, is it working?
Now it's
Yeah, just real close. Okay, sorry. Rose Height, I own the Adar Holding property there. Address 5208 Ayrshire, LaGrange, 40031. Just trying to figure out is, and I may have missed it from the beginning of the meeting when I was a little bit late, is that easement that's behind the property that I own there, there's nothing that's occurring on that easement. That is, as I understand it, that's a utility easement.
If you can answer that into the mic, please, just for our record, thanks.
Yes, that property is currently owned by the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and they do have a program for doing utility relocation upgrades and that. What we would prefer to do is the road that you see on the very far side,
Right over there.
okay, to access, we would like to be able to eliminate that and come in from this end and utilize the corner there of the state property to get access into, it would be terrain-wise, it would be a much better roadway at this end than this end, but we currently do not have permission to use that, so.
Because as I understand it, the state also owns, let's see, that's the property there, the state also.
You can use the mouse on there, and so everybody can see what you're talking about.
Yes, they own that also.
No, they own this piece right here.
Okay,
That's that L-shaped piece is what the
the
Commonwealth owns.
Commonwealth owns, okay. Because we've always had the understanding that this portion right through here is also part of the state.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
This is the property line here for Skylight Properties.
Okay, so would this portion here then become part of your entrance if you can get this worked out here?
Well,
Or where would that come in from?
It
I guess
would-
that's what I'm trying to understand.
it would come in from down here.
Down there around the corner.
And they would enter into the industrial park, and there would be an access drive come here up to this property, similar to how this one comes up and goes in the
Okay,
property.
all right. And when you're looking at this entrance here, sorry, this entrance here, is that directly off of 393, or this is coming off of,
Here's the new 393 here,
okay,
and this is that entrance into the Kroger,
okay,
and this is old 393 here.
right,
You've got the storage place down here at the end of the cul-de-sac here.
okay.
This would be the main entrance right here. They come
Kind of
up.
down below that house that sits there,
Yes, ma'am.
up above the trailer storage.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just to clarify, I think you said that was an entrance into Kroger. Kroger's further south.
Yes.
That's
Okay,
that's just a stub road that was created for future use.
I'm going to say one more thing about this, just so we're all clear. I don't know if I need to, Wes Johnson again, but the current owner, Steve Willis, who owns the trust plant, used to own multiple parcels down here. Who's your neighbor? He, for years, has been trying to come up with a way to keep their tractor trailers from crossing the railroad. So he recently, in the last couple of years, has sold this business, knowing that property might change hands in the future. He had a deeded easement that came down the back of the property that the current trust plant owns, so that they could, as a last resort, they would be able to get their trucks out one day to 393. What we're doing and what we're providing here is that rear entrance for him. So more likely than not, and what we're proposing here is that if he cannot obtain an entrance to 393 up here on and in conjunction with the state, that entrance or rear access would come here. So that easement, because he's the one that basically owns the easement, he would release that easement, would be kind of the thought down the road. That has not happened yet, but we wouldn't have an entrance or an exit here and here. And what we're proposing right now is that it would happen right here,
Okay,
if that makes sense.
yeah, okay. All right, that's it, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions? Okay. Well, we are going to close the public comment, and if you received notice of today's meeting, you will also receive notice of when they go to Planning Commission. If they need to, will they be going to Planning Commission? You believe so? Okay. If they end up going to Planning Commission, you'll receive that notice, and the hearing is held in the same room the fourth Tuesday of each month. And if no one has anything else, this meeting stands adjourned.